My name is Bente Dalsbeck. I will be the moderator today. As we know, education is pivotal in driving economic growth, and without education there's no progress. So education means skills and knowledge, increased productivity, and it means innovation, and it's in strengthening human capital development. In short, education, I think, is a possibility for the individual and for the society to release its potential. I think we can perhaps all agree on that. So, to understand how education can be a stimulant for sustained and stable economic progress, we have today a very esteemed panel who will provide us with a deeper understanding of the benefits in investing in education, and also how to create an education system that prepares individuals for the demands of the new global economy. I'm very proud to welcome Your Excellency, Minister of Science and Higher Education, Kazakhstan, Nurbek Sayasat. Welcome. Let's give a hand. And Your Excellency, Kathy Leach, British Ambassador to Kazakhstan, warm welcome. Judy Kuo, Chargé d'Affaires for the US Mission at Kazakhstan, welcome. Jeff Magino-Calda, CEO of Coercer. We'll continue the clapping, yeah. And Ben Nelson, founder of and Chancellor of Minerva University, welcome. And Matt Schiltz-Schasse, I'm sorry if it's not quite right, but this is fine, good. First Secretary of the Federal Republic of Germany to Kazakhstan. Welcome to you also. And last but not least, all the way in the other end, Xavier Letovrievechek. I'm sorry if it's not that correct. You are the attaché for cooperation in the field of secondary and higher education at the French Embassy in Kazakhstan. So, we are, as you can see, a very large panel today. 7 people and only so much time. So, I will try to be as fair as I can. And I'll try to see if we can exploit some of your experiences and some of your visions so we can inspire our audience. I cannot promise that we will take questions, but perhaps we will try. But I think that it's a very talkative panel I have here today. So, we're talking about the linkage between education and growth. It's the theme of today. So I would like to ask each one in the panel, from your perspective, your special perspective, and you can feel free to give concrete examples from your work and experience. What is to you the most significant link between education and economic growth that we perhaps, if not oversee, then are not paying adequate attention to? Or you can also perhaps focus on what are we doing right. So we're not always talking about what we are doing wrong, but what are we doing right. And I will start with you, Your Excellency, and I think perhaps you could talk a little bit about the Bolachok scholarship as an example of that.
Thank you, thank you. Well, first of all, let me greet everyone at the Astana International Forum. We have a perfectly balanced expert panel today, both gender-wise, expertise-wise. You have policymakers, you have private companies, you have ambassadors, you have unconventional universities. It's a perfect balance. We have a big audience, a bit distant, so you can hopefully you could hear us and see us. It's a bit like a TV show, in fact, a bit intimidating. Like, okay, I come from Ministry of Science and Higher Education. Let me start with a vision we have for our country, a vision in terms of education. And the key question you raised, what is the link between education and labor market and economy? And it's vital, it's crucial, and it's becoming even more crucial with all the challenges we have now. So there are 2 big forces pushing Kazakhstan and the region and creating new challenges for our education systems. One is demographics. So we've seen this big surge of population growth in the last 3-4 years. On average, there are about 400,000 babies born in Kazakhstan annually. Uzbekistan, 1 million babies. So Central Asia is growing, it's a steep growing curve. The United Nations expects the population of Central Asia exceed 82 million by year 2030. So in about 10-year time, we'll be, Godspeed, God helps, a 100 million market. But you look at the bigger picture, you take what's called the region that's called Greater Eurasia, the former Soviet Union, Central Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India. There are over 2 billion people living in that area. And more than half of them, over 1 billion people, are young people under the age of 25. Imagine that huge pressure on labor markets. Imagine billions and billions of mouths to feed, so to speak. Well, imagine the pressure on Ministry of Education of India with 1.5 million schools and 650 million young people under the age of 25. So I had a very funny situation. I was attending a London Education Forum about a month ago, so I was speaking about this demographic growth, and my colleague from Indonesia, Minister of Education, said, "Saya Sad, I have 330 million people, 90 million young people, 60 million students. Don't tell me you have a problem." And then the Minister of Education of India was like, guys, can I? Second big force is migration. Interestingly, the academic hub for the region of that Great Eurasia was always Russia and Ukraine. And what's happening to unfortunate events, and one of the themes of today's Astana International Forum is dialogue. Let's talk about problems. Let's get rid of that polarization. We don't want countries to pick sides, to be on the wrong or right side. We want to talk about it and create this dialogue. So this is creating another interesting opportunity for our country, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, once-in-a-generation opportunity to seize that migration stream that is now looking for alternatives. And we're doing 5, 6 big things to counterattack, to to create this opportunity and build a strong brand study in Kazakhstan. And I would like to thank our panelists today, the Embassy of Germany, especially Embassy of UK, French Embassy, for providing support and creating strong partnerships. So one thing we're trying to do to build that hub, academic hub for the region, is to open up our higher education area and bring in foreign universities. So we had opened 4 branches of foreign universities last year. We had 2 major Russian universities. We had American University of Arizona open up its branch campus in north of Kazakhstan. For the very first time, if you think about it, an American university opened up its branch campus in this part of the world. And we had British University, Leicester University, De Montfort University opening up a branch campus in Almaty. This year, we're opening up 6 more branch campuses. The highest ranked is University of Heriot-Watt, the oldest British Scottish technological university. It'll open up a branch campus in Aktobe, west of Kazakhstan. 20th of June, the federal president of Germany is traveling to Kazakhstan, His Excellency Dr. Steinmeier, and we'll be laying foundation of a German engineering institute in Aktau in west of Kazakhstan with this huge project in green hydrogen production. For the very first time, German engineering standards are coming to Kazakhstan at full scale. And there's an interesting, just one more example, Kızılorda, Korkutata, it's Southern University, regional university, will be partnering with Seoul Tech, the Seoul, South Korean National University of Science and Technology, and we will be building a school of artificial intelligence. Second big pillar of that strategy, apart from partnerships, in investment in infrastructure, both digital and physical infrastructure. And I would like to thank Jeff Majincalda here with Coursera. We're starting a very interesting pilot project. I framed it. You know, you have B2B, B2C, and B2G. This is B2N partnership, business to nation partnership. For the very first time, Coursera helps the whole national higher education system to instill the short-term curricula courses, skills-based courses in our national curriculum. We'll be having a separate panel session tomorrow with all our universities involved, with a press conference involved, and Jeff will elaborate on this. It's a really interesting pilot project with more than 94,000 hours of online instruction already taken, with our 25,000 students registered for 36,000 courses in a span of 5 months. And completion rate, Jeff, is 106%. This is the highest completion rate on online MOOC systems you've ever seen. Because we had a carrot and a stick, you could actually, if you take that short-term courses, they actually can be credited. So digital literacy and skills-based economy is becoming a priority. And more countries in the world now are switching to that skills-based model. So we try to intertwine the formal curricula with this, what Jeff actually calls the career skills or career curricula. There's real specific skills like Python programming or like big data or AI literacy that are actually asked for by employers. And one last thing is that in that vision of building the higher education hub, it is actually giving as much autonomy and flexibility to our universities as possible so that they can work with regional companies, with regional industries. And Minerva University's Ben Nelson here would give you a lot of insights on how to think about higher education unconventionally, how to find new, hybrid, very flexible ways of transforming higher education into very adaptable, very flexible, very needs-based model. And so we are not afraid to experiment with our higher education because challenges are really great. And so we have an opportunity to seize, and we'll use every measure possible to create this big, new, bold hub for academic excellence and academic mobility. And I would call upon partners and delegates of today's Astana International Forum, please heed our call, go back to your countries, talk to your higher education institutions, talk to your research institutions. There's a big new education market formed in this crossroads in Central Asia, and there's very great opportunities. You could try new things with full support of our ministry and our government. Thank you, and I'll pass the floor back to you.
That's a very generous invitation. I'm sure that the delegates will take that with them. And thank you so much on your thoughts on how to build a new educational infrastructure that will fit a totally new demographic and a totally new, I had a panel earlier, a new green transition. There's a lot of new skills to learn. And it's very interesting how do you approach it. So I will move on quickly because we need to move a little. Your Excellency, Katie Leach, would you give us your views on the link between education and growth, and with the respect from your the aspects from your embassy's work here?
Yes, thank you, and it's a great pleasure to be here. Education has been one of the key pillars actually in our partnership with Kazakhstan from independence, and I'm really proud that the UK continues to be one of the key destinations for Bolshak students, a cohort of around 5,000, I'm sure a lot in the audience now, so as well as partnerships with universities in the really early days. So it's a real pleasure to be part of this panel talking about education. And I guess on this question, the link between economy and education and economic growth, I mean, we have some fabulous examples, I think, in the last 50, 70 years of countries who have really demonstrated the power of education to drive economic growth. I'm thinking of South Korea. When I asked the ambassador, my dear friend, the previous ambassador of South Korea, Republic of Korea, in Kazakhstan, the secret of Korea's success, he said, oh, there are three: education, education, education. And really, I think countries like education, Singapore is another one, all the Asian tigers, they've demonstrated how you can go from, well, Singapore had a GDP per capita in 1960 of just over $1,000 to a GDP per capita of 73,000 just a number of decades later. So I think if you're asking what are the secrets of success, what do we have to look at? Of course, money, spending on education, and looking at the kind of the amount of money you need to invest in all levels of education is one thing, but also quality. And there are different models. The Finnish model, again, a world-leading model of both education and economic success over the last 70, 100 years. Very different model from the South Korean model, but again, I think a country like Kazakhstan, only 30 years old, can look at these different models and choose what works. But I guess the third thing I would mention is the ability to adapt. And again, that's what's so crucial about this, the example of the Republic of Korea, because at each stage of economic development, they tailored their economic offer, their educational offer, to what was necessary to build the right skills, whether technical or then now it's the knowledge-based economy, what was appropriate for their level of economic growth and the needs of their economy. And that's something which I think even old economies like the UK, we constantly need to remember that question, because although we have obviously excellent universities, 4 in the world top 10, nevertheless, it's not just about the elite institutions, it's also about the broader offer. When we have between 50 and 70% of our young people are now studying in tertiary education, looking at that broader offer and making sure that you are incentivizing and training young people for the skills needed in the new economy. So I think I'll stop there. But those are some initial thoughts.
But very interesting, and also not just. I think we will get back to that. Not just talking about young people, but also about lifelong learning, and also about micro skills or skills I'm looking for the word to education that will comply with the new world.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the thing what I was looking for. So, I think we are going back to some of your points, all of the panel, when we are also going to take a deeper dive into innovational educations and how to do that. I know that there's some people in this panel who has a lot to say about that. So, but now I'll go further to you, Judiko. What is your thoughts on the link between education and growth from the U.S. Embassy perspective?
Yes, of course. Thank you very much. And first of all, I want to say that it is a great honor for me to represent the U.S. diplomatic mission here in Kazakhstan on this panel of very distinguished guests. And I absolutely agree with everything that has been said so far by Ambassador Leach and Minister Norback. And I would just simply note a fact of today's world is that we live in a world of continuous technological advancements that underpin global competition. So higher education systems has to keep up. They have to adapt in order to produce the workforce that meets the real needs of the job market and setting up our youth for success for the future with really useful competitive skills. That means investing in human capital and promoting the exchange of ideas to drive innovation, entrepreneurship, which consequently drives economic growth. So Minister Norback has already talked quite a bit about the investing in human capital here in Kazakhstan. I would like to underscore the U.S. government's commitment since Kazakhstan's independence to also foster Kazakhstan's talents through exchange programs to the United States. Some of our exchange programs may be quite familiar to some of our audience. We have Fulbright program, Global U-Grad, Future Leaders Exchange Program, otherwise known as FLEX, Tech Women, Tech Girls, International Visitors Leadership Program, and just to name a few of these. And through these programs, we have, over the past 30 years, sent 20,000 Kazakh citizens to study at U.S. educational institutions and allowing them to gain hands-on experience through training. And of course, Minister Norback had mentioned Boloshak, fantastic program. Kazakhstan's scholarship program has also sent 3,000 students to US colleges and universities over the past 30 years. And combined, these students, upon their return, they bring new skills and new perspectives that allow them to make positive change in Kazakh society and contribute to Kazakhstan's economic growth. So quality education is the engine for economic growth.
Thank you. Moving on to you, Jeff. Could you give us a little more insight on, I know that you, on the context of what you are doing, and linking it to the economic growth.
Yeah.
Then we'll take a deeper dive into some of the things
Sure.
you are later on.
So thank you for having me. At Coursera, one of our corporate values is learn, change, and grow. It's kind of funny that you say, what's the link between literally like learning and growth? Learn, change, and grow. And change is something that happens to us, and change is something we must do to ourselves. And I think that a linchpin, and the minister, you put your finger right on it, you said, we have a vision. We have a vision for what we want to accomplish. I think that change can create threats and opportunities, and whether it becomes an opportunity is the degree to which an institution or a nation can have a vision for what they want that change to look like, so that they can proceed along a path that looks more like an opportunity than like a threat. So change is happening because of technology. We need individuals, we need societies, we need businesses, we need government institutions to be adaptable, as the ambassador said. And I think that the link between learning and growth is this vision for positive change that we have to infuse, in everybody as we pursue this path.
Thank you very much. And so we are moving in the further end to you, Ben. Could you also give us some of from your perspective from Minerva University to what the link is to you?
Sure, happy to. Let me take a very different angle on this,
Please.
as we always do. In Silicon Valley, there has long been this mythical creature, of which I know exists because I've employed a few of them in my career, who is known as the 10X engineer. The 10X engineer is an engineer who produces, if not the work of 10 engineers, at least 6 to 7, and sometimes 10. And it is extraordinary to behold. They're extraordinarily rare, they do exist, and when you see their work, it is of a different caliber. It's elegant, it's well thought through, it's incredibly fast when you look at the entire process. It may take a long time in planning, but then very quick execution, etc. Now, a little over a year ago, Sam Altman, who is the founder of OpenAPI, told me that in his team, 70% of coding time was already being done by ChatGPT for his coders. This isn't ChatGPT 4.0, it's not 3.5. It was ChatGPT of more than a year ago, which, if you know anything, is like 4 geological layers. It's fossilized old technology. And what's more important and dramatic is that coding isn't really ChatGPT's only forte. Effectively, any knowledge work now can be turbocharged. Now, I don't like to talk about the future, strangely enough, despite the fact that I'm constantly being blamed that I come from there. But I do like to talk about the present, because the present gives us real information about what the future will hold. So rather than working on conjecture, you can just look at reality. And the reality is that ChatGPT has started to produce a substantial number of 10X employees. And now imagine a world, not of ChatGPT 4, 4.5, or 5, but of ChatGPT 27. And imagine a world where there is a pretty large plurality, not a majority, but a large plurality of human beings that are performing at 10x the level of a human being performing similar tasks today. Now think about what is necessary. What is the kind of education you need to enable those people to exist? And what happens to the people who don't benefit from that education? And all of a sudden, I hope you'll quickly realize, as we did quite a while ago, that the current educational system, infrastructure, cannot rise to that task. It needs to be a different approach to systematic thinking that allows somebody to have the capacity to leverage tools to produce that kind of work. And so for me, if you want to think about economic prosperity, and we think about it from a global perspective, we're not really in the business of picking winners or losers, even though I recognize that countries have their own agendas, but a national agenda or a regional agenda for success in education is to be as fast as possible to reform the educational infrastructure of a country, of a region, of the world, to be ready for that type of education.
Thank you very much. That was very interesting, and I think it activated our minister and Jeff, and I will visit that conversation you just had in a minute, because I think it's important that we also discuss exactly that, the building of the new infrastructure, the leaving no one behind. What does that mean? Because you said something along the lines that not everybody is able to move forward in this new world. So what would you do about that? But I will take my time first we have to go to the German embassy. It's you, Mechiel. Could you from your perspective in the German embassy talk a little bit about your work here in Kazakhstan?
Yes, thank you. So also I'm very happy to be here today in this panel of very interesting people. We already heard very interesting insights and also thought-provoking things, really. And for Germany, we are also one of the countries who started to cooperate with the Bolshak program we already heard about in the early days. So this year, it's actually already 30 years since our German Academic Exchange Service, DAAD, is a partner of Bolshak, and we are very happy that this is the case. This being said, we still hope that, of course, this could still grow. And for this, I also want to take on a slightly different angle from what we've heard before. I think the ambassador from the British embassy already said it, that it's not just about the elite universities, not just about the elite education. And I think some of the people here in the room know that for Germany we have a very strong system of dual education, of vocational training, vocational education. And I think this is also one way to make sure that, for example, no one is left behind, what we also just heard. To make sure that there's one way for everyone to pick the education that suits them, to make sure that there's skills everyone can acquire they actually need in their working life later on, that is not just studying, learning things by heart. You don't actually need, maybe in the company where you're working later, or in the practical skill set you would need for wherever you have to work later on. And I think this is also true for the new challenges we have today in today's world, for example, like climate change. So the minister already mentioned it, that we will have this foundation laying ceremony when our president will arrive here in a few days' time, actually, it's very soon, for this engineering campus. And this is very strongly linked to these new technologies, to the technologies of future. And if we want to have people who know how to work with those kind of technologies, who know how to combat, for example, climate change, how to use all the new things that are now being thought of, how to make our world better. We need people who do not only read about that in books, but people who actually learned those practical skills. And I think that one way to make sure of that is dual education, to really send people while they're at university, for example, to actual places where they can already try their hand at working, where they have people who show them in everyday's work how it is done, what is needed, what kind of skills are needed, and also where to find information. Because I believe that the traditional education system, we all know, we probably all lived through in our school days at university and so on, where you go to class, you study, you learn things by heart, then you take a test, you reproduce that knowledge. I think this is not what we need anymore today. I think what you need is a set of skills which incorporates the knowledge of where to find information, but you don't need to have all the information in your head anymore. So I think this also maybe ties in with ChatGPT and so on, what we just heard about. So I'll just leave it at that for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, what do we need? That's what we're going to discuss next, and how to obtain that. But we are still going down to you, Xavier. Your link, what does that look like from the French embassy?
Thanks a lot. Thanks for invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and to participate in this discussion. From my point, I would like to little bit go back to the past, because we have a vision. I mean, French embassy, which I represent today, also has a precise vision of what could be done. We need to work on the present, but I think to be successful, we have to look at the past, to remember the past, because we are not living in a cloud away from people and away from reality. And social reality, and so also economic reality, is based on history. And as far as the question of education and economic growth is concerned, for me it's fantastic question, because I mean the French experience is very well case of linked, very strong linked between education and economic progress, economical and social progress. I don't remember the creation of Sorbonne in 1257. It was a long time ago. It was a source of innovation. Sorbonne is a well-known university because there is a Sorbonne University in Almaty. But I mean, it was religious, traditional times, and the innovation of education, IT education, create the condition for enlightenment, les Lumières. And so in 18th century, we enter the time of history. So we go from a time was secular, and time became linear. So we got the past, the present, and the future. And so at that time, beginning in France, but in all Europe, education became a political issue, because you have to prepare children for future. I mean, the future of the nation lay in the children. So state has to take care of education of next generation. And after the French Revolution, the story of the creation of grandes écoles. Grandes écoles, it's not university, it's specialized establishments following the technical history, the technical progress. So let me remember you about the creation of École des Travaux Publics It was in 1794. It was created to address the shortage of engineers. And this school now is known as École Polytechnique. In 1816 was created the École des Mines for question of coals. In 29, the École Centrale des Arts et Manufactures was opened to help creation of manufacture in French it's factories. And you know Eiffel, Gustave Eiffel was trained by, was a Centralien, so he ended this École Centrale. In 78, it was Télécom Paris for question of telecommunication. In 94, it was Centrale Supélec for training electric engineers. And in 1909, there was a creation of the École nationale supérieure de l'aéronautique et de l'espace. Now it's known as Supaéro. Supaéro is situated in Toulouse, near the Airbus factories. And so in France, the state ensure the economic development through education, involved in education. And so in the 20th century, French state made the choice of nuclear energy. And can you imagine, in 25 years, 54 nuclear plants were built in France. And they were built by EDF. EDF is Électricité de France, a big company, public company of electricity. And both peoples in EDF, it's polytechniciens and centraliens. It means people who ended Polytechnique and École Centrale. And today, French government is supporting clusters of competitivity to connect research center, training institution, and industrial environment. So, for instance, there is in Paris-Saclay, there is a fantastic laboratory of Thales. And this laboratory was created by Albert Fert. He was Nobel Prize in Physics in 2007. He invented the spintronics. So it's hard research with applied development. So in France, the state play a crucial role in coordination of modernization and education, putting regulations, standard of education. In France, you have national diplomas. Principle, in France, education is not a business. Education, it's a value. So education has to be free. So you don't pay to be educated. And the principle of equality, all foreign students are studying with French students, and they get the same diplomas. Education is seen as the way to improve critical thinking, capacity to adapt, flexibility, not just knowledge, but how to learn, how to adapt to a changing world. And so, as far as Kazakhstan is concerned, I would like to give a question. Of course, French embassy will support, for instance, JUNA. JUNA is a private engineering school in France. Is ready to open a branch in Kazakhstan. Vatel. Vatel, you know, it's tourism. Vatel is planning to open a filiale, franchise, sorry, in tourism, University of Turkestan. It's good. But the question is, are you sure this is the best way? Thinking about the past and especially on the Soviet heritage of Kazakhstan, you have a lot of good universities, public universities, in all parts of Kazakhstan. It's unique. And creating branches of foreign universities, of course, it's a good solution, it's a good way, but maybe it would be even better to think about solutions to improve the level of all this public university to, thank you, not just to create one system which would live his own life, and there will be Soviet old-style university not changing. So, as far as France has this history, we wanted to make a proposition, and I think it could be interesting to also to discuss about this question of modernization through expertise. You know, in Katu, in the agrarian university, 4 years working of French experts to change the cursus. So students will be able to get engineer level because they are studying mathematics, physics, and biology. So it's a way to put innovation and to use the French experience in the science cooperation, academic education, but also professional education. And so the French experience in engineering is interesting to link the industry and the education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I think that was a direct question to you, Minister, and I think you can answer it now. And
yeah, let's just go straight to the answer, yes. Thank you, Xavier. And you're absolutely right. We do have an interesting legacy, Soviet legacy. So every region of Kazakhstan and every regional capital, so to speak, has its own university, which is kind of part of a Soviet system. And some of them are quite strong. They have strong legacy, like one in Karaganda, you know, we have two Karaganda Regional University, Karaganda Regional Technical University, Pavlodar, Uсть-Kamenogorsk, the west of Kazakhstan, east of Kazakhstan. So a part, and the question you raise is like, well, why are you bringing all these foreign universities? They will do some good, they'll add some value, but instead, why don't you focus on kind of a preserving and strengthening and scaling that existing potential, and we're doing that. So apart from bringing foreign universities, and why we do need foreign universities, in order to build that strong brand name study in Kazakhstan, a lot of people from abroad will look for brand names. So we basically need some of that branding, like Harriet Watt is here, oh. So looking from outside, in 3-5 years' time, and it is a promise from me as a minister, we'll have a very different landscape of higher education in Kazakhstan. So we'll be able to get anyone who would choose Kazakhstan as destination, academic destination, would choose between, hey, I can get a Kazakh diploma, I can get German diploma, I can get American diploma, I can get British, Canadian, Turkish, Korean, German, and several other Chinese, they're also in our pipeline. So we will not bring a lot of them, actually, only 10, 12. We already focused on quality. Just to compare, in Uzbekistan, there are 31 branches already, but you know, quite low-level universities. So we want to focus on quality. And then coming back to your question, For regional universities, we're launching a program called Centers of Academic Excellence program. So we have handpicked 15 of these regional universities who have the highest potential, and we are designing a special support program for them, support funding program for them. And they would become these new centers of regional academic and research excellence. As we speak today, the group of World Bank experts are in Almaty. I've opened up that seminar. It started today, including Jamil Salmi, one of the leading World Bank experts on education, and several others who are now talking to 15 of our university teams on how to start this program. And we'll put special investment package so these regional universities can enjoy extra investments, extra labs, attract foreign faculty, and start their research program. So it's in our pipeline already. It's apart from partnering with foreign universities, which actually shows great results. I mean, first year of University of Arizona showed us two great things. One, for the very first time in history of North Kazakhstan region, people from 8 other regions of Kazakhstan actually came to North Kazakhstan. It was never seen as academic destination in 30 years. So we had people from Aktobe, from Astana, from Almaty, from different regions of Kazakhstan because they could get an American diploma going to North Kazakhstan. So we're talking about academic mobility relaunching. And second, we've seen some interesting rise in quality of education in North Kazakhstan, which is now attracting new faculty. There are a couple of Vanderbilt University graduates, Columbia University graduates are now going there because of that branch, American University. And now there's another potential of exporting. The Arizona people are now like, look, we've calculated there's a huge market on North. There are 25 million people living in 5 adjacent regions of Russia. Just give us a go and we'll go do our marketing. We have to stop them actually, because it might become it's a complicated story. But we do see potential in bringing these branches because it will help us to strengthen the study in Kazakhstan brand. And we are also focusing on preserving the potential of existing regional universities. Yes.
Thank you very much. And yes, Judiko?
Can I add a little bit? I absolutely agree with the point that there also needs to be investment into improving Kazakhstan's network of universities. And speaking from the US experience, there are many top US universities that became world-class institutions through continuous investment in their capacity to provide high-quality education and good governance. Good governance is, in fact, really key to improving the ability of higher education systems to provide for the future needs of our economies. So the US mission in Kazakhstan created this university partnership program for Kazakhstan, which is basically sort of like a matchmaking service between US and Kazakh universities, where we match universities with similar experience or needs. So through this matchmaking program, we have in fact created over the past year 40 US Kazakh university projects where universities collaborate to improve governance needs or to upgrade curriculum or to learn about how to establish dual degree programs, whatever the needs that certain universities may have. So as a result, if I could give a few examples of this university partnership program. So in this fall, the University of Delaware and East Kazakhstan Technical University will launch a graduate program on renewable energy. And this year, the University of Arkansas, together with several regional agricultural universities, will modernize Kazakhstan's curricula to improve poultry production efficiency. And a group of Kazakh regional universities will also partner with the University of Nebraska-Lincoln to update agriculture curriculum to include business management and entrepreneurial approaches. So these are ways that we can improve the governance of Kazakh universities and make sure that they adapt and are in a better position to provide for the future needs of the global competition.
And thank you very much for that. And Kate Leach, could I ask you if you are on the same page there as the American Embassy? Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
sure.
Sorry.
So yes, and I think actually, I mean, I very much understand the approach of the minister in attracting these foreign universities as a way of helping those universities to drive up their standards, to connect them to best international practice. So I think that partnership approach, actually, which again, it's not a new idea. The Kazakh British Technical University, established some 20 years ago, was established very much as a partnership approach where students can get degrees from the London School of Economics. I think it's about turbocharging an approach that we know can work really, really well, but also making sure that that approach can reach a much wider number of students, both in Kazakhstan, but also as part of the minister's vision, creating this transnational hub in Kazakhstan for the wider region, the wider Central Asia and even South Asia.
So, thank you. And so now I'm sure that we all want to take a deep dive into innovative approaches in education. And let's start with you, Jeff. And I won't ask you to give any reference to what you were discussing with the minister, but we would like to know, of course. But could you tell us what is needed now?
I think collaboration is really, really important. As the world moves faster, the only way to keep up is by sharing ideas at a faster rate. And one of the things that you mentioned, and might not have been it landed and everybody kind of understood it, but courses on Coursera are available to students in Kazakh universities for credit towards their degree. It's like leading experts from around the world can come in as a guest lecture on almost any topic. And what you were mentioning is the two of the most popular topics in the program that's being delivered to Kazakh students in Kazakh universities is programming in Python from University of Michigan and ChatGPT prompt engineering from Vanderbilt University. They're not moving campuses to Kazakhstan. They're bringing some of their expertise into the classroom for Kazakh students being taught by Kazakh professors. And I think that that's the kind of collaboration that will help us move rapidly and keep up with this kind of pace of change. So I think technology facilitates collaboration, and collaboration is the key to keeping up.
Ben, I'm looking at you, and you came with a very thoughtful approach beforehand. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure.
The innovative approaches in education.
Sure.
What are they?
Happy to. I'll actually build on something Mathilde talked about, which is that process that we all remember from college, except Mathilde forgot to mention the last part of that equation, because you cram for the exam, you pass the exam, and then empirically, you forget everything that was on the exam. That's actually the core problem. A course-by-course delivery of education has empirically been proven for 40 years not to work. It doesn't work. Students don't retain information, they don't have the ability to recall it, but most importantly, they don't know how to apply it. They don't know how to use it. Students at American universities, as an example, this is no different than any other university, who have taken an introduction to logic class are no better logical thinkers than students who have not taken an introduction to logic class. No effect on their logical abilities whatsoever, zero. Right? And this is mega studies over a long period of time. If you were to think about all of the classes that you took when you were undergraduates in college, assuming you're not currently professors of that subject, and that final exam were to appear right now under your seats,
What a nightmare.
how many of you would be able to get anything above 10% correct? Any show of hands? That is what the empirical evidence demonstrates, except those two professors over there. Right? And that's actually why an educational system has to learn from what we know about the science of learning. There are pedagogical methods that have demonstrated that 90% of learners, when well implemented, can perform as well as the top 20% in a traditional classroom environment. Those learnings are ignored by educational systems. There are curricular approaches where delivery of education is not done disparately, but systematically, where learners connect what they learn in one class and apply it over and over and over again until they enable generative capacity in their own brains to apply things in original contexts. But that actually means that our conception of education has to change from a linear view of education. I have an A or a B. I have a 92 or an 87. I have a skill, I don't have a skill. I have a competency, I don't have a competency. Real life doesn't work that way. Real education is, once you acquire a piece of knowledge, how broadly, across how many vectors and how far from the original point of acquisition can you effectively apply it? That you need a curricular approach, and that's why fundamental reform of educational institutions is necessary, because they simply are incapable of delivering curricular education because of the structure of current universities.
I think, Mitchell, you were nodding here because you were the one who talked about education in a kind of a very boxy way. So could you give me your comment on that?
Yes, well, I actually agree with what you just said. So this made me remember one thing I watched in a video years ago, and I actually do remember that. So I just wanted to bring that up because this was a video about grading students and how does it make sense to grade students. And there was an example in music class. If you have your students listen to a piece of music which is maybe composed by Bach, and you ask them, so who is the composer? Tell me. And the students maybe say, okay, it's composed by Handel. In a linear graduation system, grading system, this would be wrong. So the student would maybe have failed if that was an exam. But Bach and Handel, they were living in a similar period of time. This music can sometimes sound similar. So shouldn't the student who said Handel, although it was Bach, get some kind of acknowledgement for recognizing this kind of period, the style, and so on. And I still remember that because I thought that it was a very interesting idea of changing the way of grading, changing the way we perceive how knowledge is applied, really. And I think, I don't really know how to put that into practice, obviously. Maybe that's the minister's job then in the end. But I think this was a very interesting idea, and I just want to share that.
Well, Minister, let's talk a little bit about your job in this, not this job, but in the job of implementing all of the ideas we have here and all of the approaches and all the improvements and the impacts. And also, if you could touch upon how you see this system going from narrow education to lifelong learning, as we talked on before, how to make a political system, take the political decisions needed to do that in your situation now.
Right. Well, let me first agree and disagree with Ben. I agree on one thing. The radical transformation in education is long overdue. And pandemic was this big litmus test, actually. It showed all the incapacities, digital illiteracies, the digital literacy of the core faculty, the lack of infrastructure, and especially digital infrastructure, and so on and so forth. But then the inertia, and then we have new challenges coming in, and ChatGPT was a great example, because century, 1,000 years old, millennia old assessment model is now under big problem and under big scrutiny. Because for thousands of years, we would assess a student by his ability to memorize certain information and then copy that information or recreate that information on a piece of paper, right? Essays, personal statements, and so on and so forth. And now the ChatGPT, the OpenAI type of algorithms come in, and you can't recognize, is it him, the student, her, or algorithm? And then now there are a lot of cases happening as we speak. In Russia, we had first case of a successful dissertation defense, which is now in court. The MIT faculty are now forced to use special algorithm to recognize if the text was written by an algorithm or a person. And then the students are suing MIT because they say, well, my algorithm is, I don't admit I used it, but it's developing much faster than your algorithm, and I can have witnesses to prove that I've written it myself, and so on and so forth. So all these challenges now push the education transform even faster. But the inertia is so strong. Really, as I speak as a policymaker, we can't really go for this big radical transformation. Infrastructure is not ready, the faculty is not ready. And to be honest, the Minerva University's model, can we copy it on a larger scale like for most of my universities? No. I don't have that kind of trained faculty. I don't have that kind of funding, right? I can't allow myself. And it's still, I have to stick to that kind of a linear, industrial-based training model. But what I can do at the moment, one, I can give as much flexibility as possible to universities, autonomy. For example, what I did, one of my first decisions was, we don't limit universities by 4-year bachelor degrees anymore. I mean, we have 240 credits. If you can squeeze it in 3 years, 3.5 years, 2.5 years, please do so. It depends on your program. It depends on market demand. We give as much flexibility this round to change the curricula up to 95%. 95% of curricula can be changed by university. So they can adapt it, they can experiment, as Ben suggests, based on their regional needs, market needs, employer needs, industry needs. And third, I'm relying on Coursera, I'm relying on other partners, Huawei, Binance, Google, to introduce this skills-based courses and certificate programs so that it could be a major in international relations, but he has to be tech savvy. He has to be digital literacy. And now we're talking about AI literacy. And here I fully agree with Ben. Basically, AI is seen as a threat. Personally, I don't see it as a threat. I see it as a big, great enhancement tool. So think of a 10x engineer, think about 10x artist, or 10x lawyer, or 10x dentist, 10x diplomat, because he can use that tool to do what he has to do to his analytics, to do his functions 10 times faster, or 10 times higher. So like, we had an interesting conversation with Ben. Kazakhstan, we can't outspend Qataris or Chinese in terms of funding of education. We can't outsmart, out-engineer German or American universities, Stanford, MIT. What we can do, we can leapfrog. So we're now looking for these possibilities where we could leapfrog. Like this great example of German Engineering Institute, green hydrogen is a big new thing. So if we focus on green hydrogen, we train enough people, engineers, who have some new skills and competencies in green hydrogen, here we go. Binance, we've signed an agreement with Binance. We're training 350 faculty members. And we will be launching, Kazakhstan will be launching the very first in the world formal degree in blockchain technology. University degree. So we'll be launching that degree programs next year, and so on and so forth. And Coursera would be, and as it Ben, by the way, AI and Python are top 2 courses now across the majors. So it's international lawyers, international relations, diplomats are taking these courses, and this is kind of a sneak preview. We haven't publicly declared that, but we met Google. And Google introduced a very interesting program in Finland where the government of Finland says, I want 10% of my adult population be AI literate. I want to introduce that core curriculum all across the upskilling programs and university degrees, so that anyone who's graduating will be AI ready. So we'll be launching something similar. We want all our students to be AI ready as well. So this is the best we could do at the moment, but we will have to think about radical transformation. Please join us, and I'd like to address the audience. In November this year, we'll have a big conference in Almaty, EdCrunch conference. We'll be talking about radical transformation, and both Ben and Jeff are welcome there.
Thank you very much. And we are almost running out of time, so I have to ask you the final question, but it's actually a little along the lines what you said, Minister, and I will end with you because I want your answer last, if that's okay. But and I'll go to one of my favorite quotes, or an extract of it, that you have the horse and the boy in the woods and he can't see the way through. There's a long way to the goal. And the boy asks the horse, I can't see my way through, what to do? And the horse says, well, if you can see can you see the next step? Yes, then take that. So that's what I want to ask you, each and every one of you, as a final. What is the most important next step to take right now to ensure that we are, if not leaving everyone behind, we cannot obtain that in just one step, but approaching it? We'll start with you.
Well, this might sound a bit cheesy, but I think the next step is the ones you're already planning. So this is the right next step. We already spoke about cooperation and how important it is. And I think that all the cooperation programs we heard about also from the colleagues from the embassies that are already being planned, that are going to be kicked off in the next days, months, years, that this is already the right direction and this is the right first step to take, to internationalize it, to put in money also into research and development, to make the Kazakh students fit for the labor market, really.
Thank you. Javier?
Thanks a lot, yes. Next step would be the step taken by some little children who just learn to walk. So I would say that looking at children's, we can just imagine future for us as we are living in present time, not forgetting past and working for a future of a new generation, and trying to learn them not only to walk but to be part of a fantastic changing world.
Thank
through
you.
innovations. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben?
I would advocate that, and to Sayasat's point, a system cannot change overnight. It's impossible. You cannot just flip a switch and everything is correct. But when you are stuck on a particular system and try to incrementally change it, you can't get to a new ideal. You've got to have a lighthouse. You've got to have a beacon. You got to do 1, 2 institutions right. And once you do that, and this is a process of years, but once you do that, then everybody else will follow.
Thank you. And then to you, Jeff, the last step? Not the last step, the next step. The last step, that would be nice.
I think the whole theme here is responsiveness to change, which some would call agility, right? So I think creating learning agility and kind of institutional agility, I think a lot of that happens through collaboration. I actually think that what I'm seeing is very much on the right path, and who knows where it's going to end up. But I think that being good at dealing with change is the key thing, and sharing ideas and best practice on how to do that is the best way to become agile.
Thank you. And Judy Kuh?
I think we've all touched on this next steps, really trying to figure out how technology plays a role in the future of education system, and also to address the digital divide and making sure that quality education is accessible to all. which I don't think we talked too much in depth today on this, although it was planned on the agenda. So I would urge all program implementers, policymakers to really think about accessibility. Make it a priority when you are doing, for example, for a US mission, when we do exchange programs, we make it a priority to make sure that we prioritize applicants from rural areas, people with special needs, or young women who are interested in the STEM education fields, to make sure that we create an equal opportunity to all so that everyone has access to quality education. That is so important.
Thank you very much. Kathy Leach?
Thank you, and I think I'll build on that point. At the moment, I don't have concerns for university education. With Minister Nordbeck leading the charge, I think the next steps are clear. So I think the 2 points I would make are about the other ends of the lifelong journey. So primary and secondary education, and as Judy said, making sure that particularly in rural areas, you've got the quality of education to make sure that those kids in rural areas are part of that pipeline into the great new university system, which we've been talking about today. So, and that also means access to languages, this vision of Kazakhstan as a trilingual state, Kazakh, Russian, and English. I think that's an incredibly important thing, and we know that the quality, I'm interested, of course, in English teaching. We know that the quality of English teaching across particularly rural schools in Kazakhstan is not good. So that's one of the things, and the other end of the scale is lifelong learning, and making the system, the educational system, as flexible as possible. So, for example, people don't have to become teachers by doing a 5-year, 4-year teaching degree, but can do any degree and then retrain at any point in life, either as a 22-year-old or as a 55-year-old, because teaching needs people from with life experience as well as people who want to go into it as a young person. So, or they might want to retrain as a doctor at 40, or they might want to retrain as a programmer. But allowing this retraining, lifelong retraining, I think that's that lack of flexibility, I think, is still one of the challenges for Kazakhstan. And so, looking at how to allow people at every stage of life to retrain, I think, is really important.
Thank you very much, Minister.
They have a word for it now: deep skilling. You know, we had reskilling, upskilling, and deep skilling, where you could actually go deeper and it kind of emerge with new skill and new specialty. For me, the next step, the immediate next step, would be increasing the public funding. I'll just to compare, South Korea, they spent 4.3% of their GDP on education and 4.7% of their GDP on research and development. So it's 9%. It is astounding. Think of GDP of South Korea, what is it, $1.7 trillion? So it's billions of dollars you spent on your research and education. Just to compare, in Kazakhstan, we spent for all levels of education 1.5% of our GDP. That's all, kindergarten, everything, higher education. And we spend 0.13% on our R&D. So it's less than 2% combined. So you can't really talk about the quality of education when the average public spending annual on training or in higher education, it's $2,000, $2,000. And that's you can't. And we demand education, say Poland, Eastern Europe, like $10,000 a year per year. And we talk about British education when you have 25,000 pounds, and American, 80, 100,000 a year. So it's really about how much we're willing to spend to have quality education, how much we're willing to spend to really bring that excellence centers, equip our students with extra skills, provide them with digital tools, rebuild the academic infrastructure. So that my biggest war, my biggest battle would be with Ministry of Finance.
We'll see how that battle plays out. We are running out, we have no more time. So I just have to say thank you to all of you for your many interesting perspectives, but also for the invitation and for the invitation to collaboration. I have a feeling that if we took the 7 of you and put you in a room and ask you to build a new education infrastructure, it would go like this. So thank you very much for this interesting discussion and perspectives. Thank you.